Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. For those who've watched quite a few episodes, if you know anyone else who would benefit from watching these episodes, please share it with at least one person. If you're watching live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Lorin Poole, Chartered Accountant and Audit Manager at the Big-4 Audit Firm. Lorin, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, guys.
Let's jump straight into the meat of the story. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Lorin Poole? Give us a backstory.
I was like thinking this question was probably going to be asked. And I was like, okay, what's actually exciting about me? But let me maybe start back then. So I was born in Saldanha. So I'm this small girl. And then I moved to Cape Town, did high school at Tooways High School. And then at that point, I was like, what do I want to do for my career? I wasn't doing that while in grade 9. And I was like, at this point, I need to make a decision and be like, what do I want for my future? And then I went to a psycho business game. And at this business game, they said CAs earn nice money. And I was like, okay, this is what I want. It's the money. That's what I want. And then I went to university at UWC. And then going through my first, second year, I was like, okay, is this really worth the money? All these tears, these late nights of studies, is this really worth the money? And I realized it has to be much more bigger than that. You have to feel the purpose or know that this is your purpose to go forward, because it can't just be money that's keeping you for this career. And then I did my honors, failed my third year, I had to do third year again, went into honors. And then for my first year of articles, I was a lecturer, academic trainee specifically at UWC, and then did my second and third year articles at PwC, and then qualified last year as a CA, which was a journey and a half.
That was the summarized version. I like how the last few years were in one line. But okay, let's see. Let's see how we get from asking the questions. So I mean, you've done your article, you've done academic traineeship, and you did your articles at the Big-4 firm, and now you're a manager there. What's been
Yes.
your experience so far at the Big-4 firm? Do you focus on a specific industry, or do you serve clients like across many industries? Talk to us about that.
So the very nice part of it is that I don't have a specific industry that I'm like specializing in, for example, financial services. So I do specialize or have exposure in a lot of industries. I'm never like, oh, I'm just doing one thing for the same time. I am at the process of seeing how machinery are being manufactured, to how the mining industry is working, to how biological assets are grown, how chickens are grown during the process. So I have wide exposure. And I think that's the biggest thing of being where I'm at, is that I'm never stagnant, or it's not just in isolation doing the same thing over and over, but it's actually getting exposure in the different industries, speaking to different people, speaking to the CEO, but also speaking to the cleaning lady at the working place as well. So it's getting that exposure. And I think the biggest thing for me specifically is that the amount of support you do get. If you want to do something, no one's going to stop you from doing it. They're like, okay, how can they help? And also now with AI being a big thing as well, emerging in that world of IT, and how do you make sure that when you come in from university and going into articles, getting that exposure to that as well. So I really enjoy it a lot. I've never have a boarding day. And one of the most important things that are for me, it's the people. It's the people that is there. It's a sense of community. You never feel like you're alone in something. It's like if you quickly need someone to speak to, you quickly go to them, and then you feel uplifted again. Okay, I can get back to work now. So being at a Big-4, I have been exposed to so much, and I can already see being exposed to so much in the future again. And it's never at a point I feel like my career's ended. It's like, what is next? Every day is what is next for me.
So it's interesting what you say there, because a lot of people have the impression that, oh, if you join a Big 4 firm, you're going to be stuck in a certain industry, like in banking or financial services. So the fact that you get exposure across different industries is something that people should be aware about. So that's important.
Mm.
And then I noticed, I mean, you've also now transitioned from being an audit consultant or an audit trainee to a manager. Maybe the question that I want to ask is, was it difficult? Talk to us about the change. Were you prepared for it? And what tips can you give those who are currently making that change?
Yeah, so I think just in general, once you are done with your articles in general, I think the thing is you're like, okay, now I'm a qualified CA, but people don't have a tendency to understand that you're qualified CA, but you're newly qualified. So you still need to get that experience as being in the chartered accounting stream. In your traineeship, you've learned a lot, but now you're at the point where you want to start maybe specializing and getting to that transition. So in the beginning of articles and going into my new role, I was like, okay, now I'm a CA. Am I supposed to know everything? Like, I have still so much to learn. What am I supposed to know? And I think that's a transition that you go through, that as a manager, you need to take it step by step and grow from what you've done wrong, and also have people that are there to support you. I think that's the most important thing, that a lot in our career or in your university career or in your articles, you feel like you need to go through everything by yourself and have everything fully figured out. Where it's not the case. At certain points you do, but at other points you don't have to have something figured out, when there is a army behind you saying, okay, this is what you can do. And going through that transition, there were the challenges of, okay, different personalities that I need to manage, or having certain leadership skills with certain people at that point in time, because that's what they needed, but also understanding that each and every one are going through what they're going through. Even might be at home, they might have a rough morning, but it's also understanding that they're coming in to work, they might seem very sad, but also knowing that I'm then being like, are you okay? How was your day? And it's not just let's go to work. And I think that's a perception people have. It's like, okay, now we need to work and now we need to focus. But it's also, we are people, we go through things, and we have a whole group of community that are there to support. So that transition was challenging, but I feel like if I did not have the support that I had, and I still currently do have, I would have thought I would probably been crumbling completely. But the support was, for me, the most important thing.
I appreciate that answer. For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. Tell us, going back a little bit, what was your academic trainee experience like at UWC?
It's like you said, I summarized something early very, very fast, but this, it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. I always like the fact to give back, and then in academic traineeship, you're giving back constantly to students. You are helping them, imparting the knowledge to them. So I really, really enjoyed the process, and in this process as well, what us as academic trainees did is we did a honor support group, because we knew what it was like to be honest and writing every Saturday test and getting about a 20%, 30%. And you're like, okay, what is next? So what we've done is we did a support group to be like, we understand what you're going through. If your marks are not looking that great, these are the steps that you can take going forward. And then also, if you are struggling, and you need to see someone, we refer them to someone to go and speak to, because that's also the most important, is taking care of the mental health during the process. Because you will write the paper, you'll fail, but you have to pick yourself up so fast to write the next paper and study for the next paper. And I really enjoyed the exposure in terms of, I was able to lecture, I was able to set a few questions, I was able to mark, and I've built lifelong relationships to the point now, if I have big achievements in my life, I message my lecturers and I said, okay, like last year I messaged him, I said, I got a newly qualified CA, and I took a picture of my certificate and sent it to them. And to this point, I have still that strong relationship with them, knowing that I'll always give back. If they need me to come there, I'll be there. That's what I'll do.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I've noticed a lot of academic trainees, they tend to go back to academia after articles. Yeah, you decided you want to stay on as a manager. Talk us through your thought process there.
That's a really good question. So a lot of academic article clerks, they go back and they go and lecture, but in my case I felt like I still had so much to learn to be able to go back and impart. And especially when we sit and we do auditing in university, you're like, what am I doing? I mean, I'm saying obtain management representation letter, but what is that actually? Like, in audit world, I know what it is now. So I still have so much to learn in the industry, in different sectors, to be able to go back and be like, okay, this is what you can learn and this is what you can do. So I haven't gone back yet. In the future, I'd like to go back. And I still currently tutor as well. So I still have a bit of that in me, but I still think I have a lot to learn before I need to go back.
I going and I know you mentioned earlier before we jumped on the call, when I initially reached out, I felt like there was a lot that you wanted to share, and I knew maybe my questions are not going to give them justice. I'm going to miss one or two. So, what question do you wish I'd asked that we haven't spoken about yet?
The one question we should ask. So but it probably would have came out soon or earlier enough. I think the one question is, or the one thing I'd like to actually say is that a lot of this time with students, or if you're in high school, or who's ever watching this podcast, basically, you're sitting at the point where you probably want to give up. We're in the period now where it's August, you guys would have gotten your June results, you would have known where you are for your ballpark to be able to write your exam to see if you qualify for your exam. So the most important thing I want to actually say is don't give up. I have, as I've mentioned earlier, I failed my third year, and when I failed my third year, I was like, now I'm getting into honors. So my mind was set, honors is what I wanted initially. Then I failed my third year, and that like broke me. I went in like a deep ball of a circle, and I was like, for a month, I was like, do I go back? What do I do? And for perspective wise, I just want each and everyone to know that if you have failed and you feel like you're at your wits' end, just know that it is possible to continue. And when I was on my lowest, my mother was there to pick me up. And when I was there on the lowest, it put a lot into perspective to realize that CA is all that, but I can't make it all that. I can't make it my all in all. In my case, I put God first, and then I follow, and then CA will come afterwards. And when I changed my perspective and I looked back and I was like, okay, I'm putting God first, then I'm going to move on. Everything worked out in according to place. And when I failed, to be honest, I looked at my marks and I was like, oh no, I blame the lecturer. They just don't know how to mark, or no, the memo is wrong. And I kept on pointing fingers, and I didn't realize that, look here, I was the reason for it. Then I looked at my script, sat to someone, and they were like, no, Lorin, this is what you're missing. This is what you're missing. So never point a finger unless you actually look at the information yourself, looked at the memo, spoke to someone and said, where did I go wrong, before you point the finger. And once you have that, you'll be able to move on. And trust me, you'll do really, really well. So as everyone is reaching this last stage, ready to qualify for exams, third year honors, wherever you're at, don't give up. It's almost there. We're few months time, we're almost there.
Gary, we talks a lot about when you're pointing fingers, you must realize where's your thumb pointing. You should be pointing thumbs instead of pointing fingers.
Yeah.
But let's move over to some questions, because I see the questions are flowing through. We've got a question from Brian who says, what's the most challenging part of being an audit manager?
So the most challenging part of being an audit manager is that I think in the beginning stages, and I mentioned it earlier, is that you feel like you need to know everything. You feel like you need to know the audit, the IFRS, the ethics. You need to know the clients that you have. You need to know everything, but you don't realize that it is a learning curve. That each manager has a strength and a weakness. And what I've seen relatively is that my strength might be this, but my co-manager's strength might be something else, and we go together really well. And that's what it's all about. It's about not going with the perception that I know everything, and going back and say, if you don't know anything, just say, okay, I'll get back to you on this. Or that's where your support structure comes in and says, okay, I've seen this mistake, I've seen this, or this is what I'm struggling with. What is your thoughts on it? So don't go with that mentality that I know everything, but what can I learn, and focus on your strengths. And then what I do during the process is that I set myself goals, and I was like, okay, let me focus on things that I'm not that good at, so that I can get and grow through that throughout the year.
Comment from another manager, so that seems like it's relatable. Got a question from Sipu Setu, who says, I'm outside of audit. I left audit a few months ago. I'm planning to go back. What advice would you give someone planning to go back at a manager or assistant manager level?
So the advice that I would give, it depends if you're going to your old audit firm or you're going to different audit firms as well. How can I say, don't forget what you've learned during the period that you've now left audit. You can always add value to that specific audit firm of what you've learned during that period. And there's a lot of times I've seen people that came back from outside audit, and they actually add a lot of value to the audit environment. And also the advice is, have that someone that you can count, and have that someone that you can speak to and say, okay, I am struggling with this, and what do you recommend me doing? And if you're going back and you have to work with specific partners, always just know what are the expectations, what do they expect of you during this process. But also knowing that you need to also learn, because you have been a few months out of it, that you shouldn't go there and say, okay, I know everything. There is support there. Don't feel overwhelmed. It gets You get the hang out of very quickly. I don't think once you audit, you always want to audit.
Got a question from Deirdre Basson, who I think is also an audit manager, or well, she must be a very senior audit manager now. As an audit manager, what are the trainees' greatest challenges on the job, and how can they be supported in this?
So, in general, I'll speak with trainees, with students, because I do mentor a lot of students as well. And recently, I've spoken to a lot of high school learners. I think the most important is mental health. I think that's the biggest awareness across any trainee, student, or learner is mental health. That's the greatest challenges at the point of post. We went into COVID, everyone did everything virtually, and now you have to speak to people face to face. Where behind the camera, you didn't actually know what they were thinking, or you didn't see their facial expressions, but now you're actually seeing them face to face. And how do you deal with it? Because sometimes someone will give you a look and then you're like, are they angry at me? But it's maybe just their personality. So it's the understanding of that. So the biggest challenges is mental health, and the awareness that needs to be put out is, if they are struggling, let them get help with that. Sometimes just going for a walk can go a long way, and coming back to work and focusing.
And the last one, a quick one from Brian, who says, how does one get into tutoring?
So in my case, it's because I was academic trainee, and then since then I've still had the relationship with UWC. But I would definitely say go out and reach out to the universities, and also there are tutoring jobs or tutoring businesses that I know of that I've dealt with in the past that also provides it. So they provide maybe tutoring to people that are doing honors through UNISA, because the support that they're getting at the specific audit firms. So just Google, reach out and see. I don't specifically, just because I got through due to academic training. That's the reason.
I think Abasa also has a tutoring arm, so reach out to them as well. That might be another option. Then this is a question I like to ask all my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
The one point, the one advice that I'll give my younger self, I would say that just be confident in what I know. I think there's a lot of times where things are being said where your confidence can be knocked down. And then you're like, okay, you start doubting yourself and being like, do I know it? Do I not know it? It's just knowing that, be confident in yourself and being confident in your capabilities. You've come far, you've learned throughout the whole process, throughout my articles, throughout university, throughout high school, learned so much that you shouldn't disregard it when you reach a certain level.
Any last few words or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
No, nothing that we didn't discuss, but just knowing that we're almost at the end of the year, And if you do have people that are at universities or stuff like that, they are reaching towards the end, and just reach out to people, reach out to the students, find out if they're doing okay. And Brian asked about the tutoring. You always don't need to be part of a tutor company to tutor. There's students that really do need help with academics.
I think that's a great way to end off the conversation. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Lorin, thank you so much for your time.
Anyways.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.